Studies and Freddie Mac found that the majority of U.S. households, or about 2/3 of the entire population, reported that they had experienced at least one rent hike in 2023. Meanwhile, 1 in 10 said that they saw a whopping $400 price increase in the first quarter. With the cost of housing exploding across the country, more and more people are missing rent payments and facing evictions. Today, eviction filings are actually 50% higher than in 2019, when there were no pandemic moratoriums in place and the market was still considered normal. Official estimates reveal that more than 8 million renters may lose their homes this month, and that may be just the beginning of a trend that will devastate countless American families. That's what we're going to discuss today. But before moving on, leave a thumbs up on this video to support our work, and please turn the notification bell on to see what's coming next. Soaring rent prices have amplified the pain for millions of households also dealing with frequent price hikes for food, gas, utilities, and other daily necessities. Even though some reports say that prices are cooling in many areas, the truth is that they may not be rising as fast as before, but they're still rising and may never come back to pre-pandemic levels. In 2019, the average price for a two-bedroom apartment in the United States was just $1,320. Today, families are paying on average $700 more in rent per month for the same two-bedroom unit. That's a staggering 53% increase in just 4 years. Just in the past 12 months, rents rose by 26%, and a shortage of affordable homes is squeezing many American families and putting them an edge closer to facing eviction this year. Housing costs remain well above pre-pandemic levels thanks to the substantial increases over the last few years, explained Daniel McHugh, Senior Research Associate at the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. A new survey published by the Research Center just a few weeks back found that 60% of U.S. households experienced at least one rent increase since January, including 17% who experienced 2 or more rent hikes. The increases range from between $75 to $100 per week, meaning that for some families, monthly rents have become $400 more expensive so far this year, with a ratio of 1 in 10, or about 4.4 million renters, reporting that's their case. At the same time, 85% said they would struggle with another rent increase. About 52% would have to cut on other expenses to cover rent, and 33% would experience financial insecurity if rent surged by another 10% this year. In contrast, a separate survey conducted by Freddie Mac revealed that just 38% of renters saw their wages increase, and 33% say their raise won't cover their increased rent. The research sought to gauge the impact of rising prices on consumers' housing choices, and it was conducted this year from June 6th to 10th among a representative sample of 2,000 American consumers aged 18 and older. Affordability issues are aggravating financial troubles for most renters in America. Now, nearly 1 in 5 who experienced a rent increase say they're now extremely likely to miss a payment, the data showed. Housing costs have been rising in the United States, so much so that rents have actually outpaced wage growth. Moody's found that the average share of household income spent on rent hit 30% in 2022. Now, that's the highest proportion in around 25 years, and it means that the average American household can now be classed as rent-burdened, explained Yahoo Finance's Rachel Akufo. According to numbers released by Freddie Mac, a total of 21.6 million households now spend more than 30% of pre-tax income on rent. Of those, about 19% are paying up to 50% of their earnings on apartments. If rent grows faster than your income every year, and your health care expenses grow faster than your income every year, that squeeze just makes it very difficult in normal life, Catherine Mackay, Associate Director of the Aspen Institute Financial Security Program, said. Given that people are having to direct more of their money toward housing, the rental market crisis is likely to affect several other areas of the economy too. Family budgets are tight, and they can get even tighter in the third and fourth quarters when seasonal demand for rents picks up while vacancy rates remain historically low. Americans may have to curb their spending even more to make ends meet, and that's bad news for the consumer goods sector. In July, rent price growth climbed for the fifth consecutive month after falling slightly in February, a report from Rent.com revealed. The trend is expected to accelerate in the final stretch of 2023, just as many courts finish processing a backlog of eviction filings and landlords start sending out eviction notices for delinquent tenants. Surveyed households by Freddie Mac were almost universally impacted, with 96% being hit by higher prices in the past 12 months. As of August 14th, 2023, the nation's median rent price is now $2,029. That is the most expensive price registered since August 2022. Over a 2-year period, weekly rent bills are on average $275 higher. And with the typical high season for rentals now in full swing, prices are rising again. So far this year, the states that saw the biggest spike in rents were South Dakota and Mississippi, with a 27% year-over-year jump, followed by Iowa, 16%, North Dakota and New York, 12%, Arkansas, 11%. Among the 50 most populous metropolitan areas, California dominated the list of largest gainers last month. The state of California takes 3 spots among the top 10 biggest month-over-month increases, led by San Jose, which rose by nearly 9.5%. Rents in the Los Angeles-San Diego metros also grew more than 5% each. For the most vulnerable renters, this surge has created even greater uncertainty, said Kevin Palmer, head of Freddie Mac Multifamily. Our survey shows that the national housing affordability crisis is worsening, and that rent inflation is a key driver. The data also exposed that renters feel powerless to negotiate rent increases, mostly due to fear of eviction. 41% of them reported they had tried to negotiate the amount their rent was increased, but were refused, and another 41% didn't even ask due to the fear of losing their lease. Many people are getting scared to report maintenance issues in case the cost of repairs is used to justify additional rent increases. Roughly 61% of tenants surveyed noted that they're currently too afraid to ask for maintenance or necessary repairs in case that leads to an increase in rent. Moreover, the survey's results also showed that about 3/4 of renter households have changed their home buying plans this year. 50% said they've become less likely to buy a house due to high home prices, while 34% pointed to increased interest rates, and 39% cited difficulty coming up with a down payment. The nationwide shortage of affordable housing isn't giving potential home buyers or struggling renters a choice other than just cope with the elevated costs. Right now, only 6% of rental units are vacant in America. Of those, less than 10% are for affordable homes. Typically, a healthy vacancy rate would be 9% to 10%, which can give renters more options to choose from and keep prices competitive. But when the supply of available units is down, landlords, especially large corporations, have more opportunity to push prices upward, and the higher demand also gives them more justification to evict indebted tenants. What is often looked for is a level of vacancy that supports a renter's ability to move and to have at least some pricing power, Lu Chen, Moody's Analytics senior economist, highlights. In theory, this would allow rent increases to remain marginally below the general rate of price increases in the economy. But that's not what's happening right now. The Economist estimates that the national average vacancy will linger at about 5% until 2025. That number could be more bleak for lower-income households. The rate for lower-cost housing remains at a depressed level of 4.7%. Both on the housing and rent market, the supply of available family homes is expected to shrink in the coming years. That's because luxury properties are the only profitable option for developers. Despite the rise in home prices, builders have seen their own costs shooting up, with shortages of raw materials only making matters worse. In many cases, higher prices for family homes weren't enough to make developers turn out a significant profit. For that reason, many of them are no longer building affordable homes, but only signing up to fancier projects. The most complicated part of that is that there will be a shortfall of middle-class homes in the market pretty soon, said Moody's risk manager Norman Mackay. There just isn't enough supply because we didn't build enough for such a long time. The future looks even more frightening. While the number of households in the U.S. is rising by 1.5% every year, the market is simply unable to keep pace with the populational growth. The rapid household formation requires inventory growth to keep up the pace. Further, while the population is aging, there is a large swathe of Generation Z, the oldest of 24, and 25 to 40-year-old millennials that are ready to enter the rental market, Moody's Chen added. Mirroring recent turmoil in the housing and rent markets, Alignable's July rent report, released last week, exposed that rent delinquency rates have just experienced the highest surge in 5 months, jumping 6 percentage points from March at 13.17%, or 28% than a year ago levels when moratoriums were still in place in many areas. Put another way, 8,070,524 people aged 18 or older in the United States aren't caught up on rent payments and have already received an eviction notice, meaning that they could lose their homes at any minute now. Researchers found that Minneapolis, Minnesota, saw the highest rate of eviction filings this year, with numbers 63.6% higher than pre-pandemic levels. The number of filings in Richmond, Virginia over the past year is 84% higher than an average year before the pandemic. In Austin, Texas, eviction filings grew 55% over 2019 levels. Austin's Travis County had local protections in place throughout March 2022, longer than the state of Texas. Austin also saw a boom in rentals, with about 28,000 new rental units built in the last 2 years, according to the Austin Apartment Association. And still, the number of eviction filings in Austin during the past year is 99% higher than an average year there pre-pandemic. Similarly, cities in Connecticut, including Hartford and Bridgeport, saw a 52.5% and 51.7% jump in their eviction filings since 2020, respectively. The states with the largest share of people behind on rent payments are New York, with 20.5% of renters currently behind on at least one payment, Nevada, with a delinquency rate of 19.6%, and Louisiana, where 18.9% of renters are now at risk of facing evictions. Advocates say that the real number of families in danger of losing their homes is actually much higher. Informal evictions, which can include lockouts, extreme rent increases, or terminating a lease without reason, could be as common as formal evictions, and that's according to Eviction Lab. But because informal evictions are not reported in a standardized way, there is no real way to track them. This month, a record number of households can be displaced from their communities because they can no longer keep up with abusive rent hikes. That will have a far-reaching impact on our society as the disparity between the haves and have-nots gets even wider in America. But without a doubt, the biggest consequence of this crisis